Let's go.
There's a whole crowd that has practically paused their lives and decided they're only going to start playing video games again when GTA 6 comes out. If that's your case, you are missing out on a lot of great games. While Rockstar prepares the next phenomenon, there's a ton of absurd titles coming out with creative open worlds, insane systems, and stories much better than you imagine, and almost no one is talking about them. I'm Matthew, and the video starts right now. Even with GTA 6 sucking up all the oxygen in the hype room, Resident Evil Requiem looks like that type of game that arrives quietly and then haunts you for weeks. And the best part, it already has a date set to do just that, on the 27th of February 2026. It's described by Capcom themselves as the 9th main title in the series and a survival horror built on the RE engine, focusing on cinematic realism and deep immersion. A detail that personally hooks me is the historical weight of the project. It's coming out during the franchise's 30th anniversary, so there's a real chance this is a chapter designed to define an era, not just check a box. At the same time, the game positions itself as the next big piece of the main line, which usually comes with pacing changes, greater ambition, and that attempt to redefine what modern Resident Evil means. And yes, the timing is perfect for it to be swallowed by the noise of GTA 6, because GTA is that cultural event that becomes a topic of conversation even for non-gamers. But Requiem is arriving with a very different promise. A spine-chilling experience, and a new era of survival horror. The kind you play in the dark and then find yourself staring down your hallway as if something were there. If GTA 6 is the game to dominate the open world, Requiem seems to be the game to dominate your psychology for a few nights. And if Capcom is really betting on this cinematic immersion they promise, the feeling might be that classic one, you don't want to continue, but you do anyway.
Grace! Grace!
Victor purchased a building after Umbrella went under. I'll send you the address.
Welcome. Dr. Gideon has been expecting you.
Leon?
Yeah. Hey, over here. FBI, what are you doing here?
Would you like to see what's hidden under the hood?
Don't do anything stupid.
Me? Never. I think I want a second opinion.
Pragmata is that type of strange and elegant sci-fi that we run the risk of ignoring when the world is only talking about GTA 6, but which might end up becoming the game you remember the year for because it has its own personality. It's a new IP from Capcom, announced back in 2020, and the proposal is a single-player action game focused on an unlikely duo trying to survive and escape a lunar facility dominated by robots and an AI. What truly wins me over is the central fantasy. You aren't alone on the moon, you are trapped in a place that feels clinical, cold, technological, and hostile. From what has been shown in materials and previews, the protagonist, Hugh, ends up being saved by the android Diana, and the dynamic between the two is the heart of the game because it's not just about carrying a mission partner, it's about depending on her to deal with what the environment throws in your face. And that's where the part I most want to see working in practice comes in. The idea of mixing shooting with hacking and puzzles during combat. Instead of just aiming and pulling the trigger, Pragmata seems to require you to break the enemy in an intelligent way, with Diana opening vulnerabilities via hacks so Hugh can finally deal real damage. Another thing that gives me hope is that even with delays, some reports point out that the team has spoken about the development challenges and that the project has advanced a lot behind the scenes. This doesn't guarantee a classic, but it suggests a game that isn't being made on autopilot, and for a new IP, this care might be exactly what separates just another futuristic shooter from a memorable experience. If the question is, why shouldn't I skip this? My answer is, because Pragmata seems to be one of those rare bets where Capcom tries to create a new world with a strong visual identity and a mechanical hook different from the standard.
On it. Nope. More of them?
Starting hack. Look out for targeting. We did it!
I knew it. Shake it up, kid.
Get ready. Look out for targeting.
Let's do this.
00 First Light is that type of game that might slip under the radar in the middle of a hurricane called GTA 6, but it has a rare spice. Finally, a James Bond that feels like a modern video game, made by a studio that understands the fantasy of being a cold, efficient, and dangerous agent like no one else. It's being developed by IO Interactive, the Hitman crew, and the proposal is to live a Bond origin story with espionage, action, and very cinematic moments. The hook here, for me, is that it doesn't seem to want to be just another licensed game. The promise is to put you at the start of his career, still earning his place, and that totally changes the vibe. Instead of the untouchable Bond, who always has the perfect answer, the idea is to follow a younger Bond under construction, and this opens space for missions where improvisation and cold blood might matter as much as good aim. And if there's something that makes this project dangerous, in a good way, it's the Hitman DNA. That sensation of infiltrating, observing patterns, choosing an approach, using gadgets in the cheekiest way possible, and leaving as if nothing happened. The official description itself speaks of a mix of gunfights, combat, stealth, and exploration, meaning it's not a rail shooter dressed up as Bond. It's a game that wants to give you tools and let you play spy. Now, for the very real life part, the date that was being communicated as the 27th of March 2026 ended up changing, and the game was delayed to the 27th of May 2026 to allow time for polish. IO also commented that the game is reportedly playable from start to finish, and that this extra time is precisely to refine and deliver the strongest possible version at launch. If you are buried under GTA 6, the reason not to ignore 00 First Light is simple. It has the potential to be the comfort game for those who enjoy missions with style, gadgets, and that infiltration fantasy that doesn't depend on a giant open world to be addictive.
My blood, my whole self. This city is an extension of my being. My body. Today, it became infected. Easy girls, plenty of meat for everyone.
Girls, of course.
Phantom Blade Zero is a wuxia action RPG from S-Game, and from what has been shown, has a strong enough identity not to live in anyone's shadow. You play as Soul, an assassin linked to an organization called The Order, and the story revolves around a conspiracy involving the murder of the Order's patriarch. The vibe is very World of Blades and Secrets, with that dark wuxia tone mixing martial arts, intrigue, and an aesthetic that looks pulled from cinema, only playable. What wins me over here is the combat. It's not pure Souls-like, nor pure character action, and the studio itself says the idea was to create a new structure that mixes exploration and progression with fluid, high-impact action. It has a combat resource that factors into decisions like attacking hard or holding defense, and reading moves matters because certain attacks drain a lot when blocking while others simply cannot be blocked. And when you hit defenses with the right timing, a ghost step happens that repositions you, like landing on the enemy's back, which is the type of mechanic that transforms a fight into choreography when you master it. Another detail that adds that deep game flavor is the loadout. Soul can carry 2 primary weapons and 2 secondaries, and this screams variety and expression of style. You can imagine people creating very different builds and combo routes. S-Game also comments that they went after authenticity, involving kung fu masters and performers and capturing movements to give that movie feel, instead of just grafting martial arts animations onto a ready-made system. If GTA 6 is that black hole that will suck up the world's attention, Phantom Blade Zero seems perfect to be the counterattack. A game more focused on style, technique, and presence, the kind you play and immediately want to show a clip to someone.
Patience is the key, Master. Time is not on his side. All we have to do is wait.
Yes. Let's kill him with time.
Marvel's Wolverine is the type of game that, even with GTA 6 occupying all the internet's oxygen, feels like an event for very different reasons. Here, the promise isn't to live in a giant city, but to wear the skin of a character who is pure brutality and internal conflict. It's being made by Insomniac Games in partnership with Marvel Games and published by Sony, focused on the PlayStation 5 with a window for late autumn 2026. What gets me personally is that Wolverine works best when the game accepts that he isn't a clean hero. He is a living weapon trying to keep some remnant of humanity. The official material speaks exactly to this search for answers about the past, with Logan willing to do whatever it takes. And this matches a darker approach, where violence isn't just spectacle, it's part of the character. And that's where the Insomniac factor comes in. After what the studio did with Spider-Man fluidity, impact, pacing, you can imagine hand-to-hand combat with claws that is finally satisfying minute to minute, not just in cutscene. The gameplay trailer reinforces this idea of brutal and relentless combat, which for me is essential, because Wolverine without weight, without aggression, and without consequence becomes just a superhero cosplay. Another reason not to pass this up is the cast that has already been officially suggested. The PlayStation blog text cites characters like Mystique and Omega Red, plus enemies like the Reavers, and hints at something big in the air with that purple prototype reminiscent of a very iconic threat. It also mentions locations like Madripoor, Canada, and Tokyo, meaning it seems like a global journey with room for very different set pieces, not just one city and done. If the worry is I'll be blind with GTA 6, Marvel's Wolverine has an advantage. It should be more concentrated and intense. That game you play for strong chapters, memorable scenes, and surgical brawling. Instead of wasting 80 hours just driving and collecting icons on a map, and since it is publicly marked as a PS5 exclusive, at least for now, and launching in autumn 2026, you can keep it on your radar as one of the year's great narrative and action titles. Fable is exactly the type of game that runs the risk of disappearing from the radar in 2026, but it has a unique identity that is sorely missed. That British action RPG, full of sarcastic humor, genuine moral choices, and a world that responds to the way you play. It's being developed by Playground Games, yes, the Forza Horizon crew, and published by Xbox Game Studios, marking the return of the franchise after more than a decade halted, with a release planned for 2026 on Xbox Series and PC. What wins me over here is the promise of a new beginning. It isn't a direct continuation, but a reboot that takes the pillars of the original series: choice, consequence, drama, British humor, and, of course, chickens, and reimagines everything for a new generation. This means that both old fans and those who never played a Fable can jump in, and this design freedom is exactly what gives room to surprise without being stuck to the heavy legacy of previous games. Another thing that makes me curious is Playground Games being in charge, a studio known for open world racing taking on an action RPG. It sounds crazy, but it could also be the type of creative risk that results in a visually impressive Albion, with fluid exploration and interaction with the world that goes beyond choose A or B in dialogue. If they apply the same attention to detail and technical polish they use in Forza, the game has everything to be a truly immersive experience. And then there's the practical side. Fable will be present at the Xbox Developer Direct, scheduled for the 22nd of January 2026, where we will finally see extended gameplay and much more information after years of silence. The official statement already promises an impressive gameplay preview, which means that in a few weeks, we can have a real sense of whether the game delivers on this reimagined Albion fantasy or not. If your worry is, I'll be too busy with GTA 6, Fable offers the opposite. Instead of an ultra-realistic city and complex systems, you'll have a fantasy world with moral choices that matter, the possibility to mold your character and reputation based on your actions, and that acidic English humor that always made the series stand out. It comes straight to Game Pass at launch, so you can try it without commitment, and considering the game was delayed precisely to receive the necessary polishing time, quality expectations are high.
Thought I'd get her out there, make the most of her gift. But you know what it's like when you're young and you have a point to prove. I tell you, this kid, she had it all. The skill, the talent, the power. She was something else, all right. She was terrifying. So, yeah, I knew this girl once who made all the wrong choices.
Humphrey. She's back.
Gears of War, E-Day, is a brutal origin story that takes you back to the most devastating day in the franchise, when the Locust Horde emerged from the depths and changed the world of Sierra forever. Set 14 years before the first Gears of War, this is the moment when Marcus Fenix and Dom Santiago, still young and unprepared, faced these grotesque creatures for the first time as they wiped out more than a quarter of the human population in the first 26 hours. Developed by the Coalition with Unreal Engine 5, the game promises unprecedented graphic fidelity and a return to the visceral horror that made the series iconic. What fascinates me about this project is how it captures Marcus in a moment of total vulnerability, something we've never seen before. In the announcement trailer, you see a two-year-old Marcus being thrown through a wall by a locust drone, desperately fighting to survive using anything around him as a weapon. This isn't the hardened, ruthless soldier we know. It's someone facing a completely unknown horror, dealing with creatures that aren't part of any military manual. It's this rawer, more personal, and desperate side that can transform E-Day into something especially memorable, showing how the legendary heroes of the COG were forged in absolute chaos. What also excites me is the promised return to graphical brutality and the gore that defined the early Gears. The trailer shows Marcus literally sawing a locust in half, revealing spinal bones and entrails in an explosion of visceral violence. This unfiltered approach, combined with the power of Unreal Engine 5 rendering everything in real time, suggests that the Coalition is taking seriously the fans' request for that raw brutality that marked the series. For those who love the beat-em-up genre and intense action games, this level of visual feedback and physical impact in combat might be exactly what you're looking for in 2026. With a release scheduled for November 2026, coinciding with the franchise's 20th anniversary, E-Day isn't a spin-off, but a complete main entry that will shape the future of Gears of War. While everyone is hypnotized by the GTA 6 hype, you might be missing a game that promises to redefine the origins of one of Xbox's most acclaimed sagas with an emotional narrative inspired by the iconic original Mad World trailer. It's that type of experience, combining intense action, atmospheric horror, and character development that fans of visceral action games and well-built stories simply cannot ignore. Control Resonant is that bold sequel that isn't afraid to turn the game upside down, literally. Announced at the Game Awards 2025 with a release forecast for 2026, this is the biggest and most ambitious project from Remedy Entertainment to date. And they aren't joking when they say, this is not a safe sequel, you won't be playing as Jesse Faden this time. The protagonist is now Dylan Faden, the younger brother who spent years imprisoned by the Federal Bureau of Control and was in a coma infected by the hiss in the first game. 7 years after those events, Dylan is recruited by his former captors to face a paranormal crisis that has transformed Manhattan into a twisted nightmare where reality is literally folding in on itself. The change in protagonist brings a revolution in gameplay that gets me genuinely excited. Forget the service weapon. That iconic metamorphic gun of Jesse's Dylan wields the Aberrant, a brutal and transformable melee weapon that completely changes the combat dynamic. Creative director Mikhail Kasurinen described the combat as aggressive, combining devastating physical strikes with supernatural abilities, reminiscent of that feeling of mastering lightsabers and force powers in Jedi games. Dylan is agile, light, and movement is an integral part of the combat loop. You'll chase down enemies while mastering the perfect combination of brawling and paranormal powers. For someone who loves beat-em-ups and visceral action, this mix of intense melee with superpowers seems like a perfect recipe. The city undergoes constant physical changes while a cosmic entity reconfigures the environment, distorts natural laws, and toys with gravity. You'll find kaleidoscopic pigeons and surrealist distortions while exploring. The game is described as an action RPG with a non-linear structure, allowing you to explore various areas and complete missions in whatever order you want. Beyond the physically deformed regions of Manhattan, you'll dive into metaphysical spaces that reflect Dylan's fragmented mind, creating that surreal and brutal atmosphere that Control dominates. It is a playground of choices and consequences, in Kasurinen's words. What interests me most is how Remedy is expanding the RPG and progression elements. Preparation will be crucial, allowing you to create custom builds that adapt to your playstyle with progression systems that make Dylan more versatile as you mold his powers throughout the journey. While Dylan tries to master his extraordinary abilities and fight for his humanity in the face of this cosmic threat, he also needs to find Jesse, who has disappeared and was the director of the FBC. This personal narrative layer, mixed with the freedom of exploration and combat, promises something much deeper than the first game, and Kasserinen guarantees that both new players and old fans will feel at home.
It's gonna get weirder.
Marvel 1943. Rise of Hydra is exactly the type of game that might disappear from your radar because of GTA 6, but which carries a rare combination. An ambitious World War II story with Captain America and Black Panther joining forces, developed by none other than Amy Hennig, the mind behind the Uncharted series. What I liked most was the narrative premise. Instead of a generic hero saving the world, you control 4 playable characters: Steve Rogers, Captain America, Azuri, the Black Panther of the 1942nd, and T'Challa's grandfather, Gabriel Jones, member of the Howling Commandos, and Nanali, leader of the Wakandan spy network infiltrated in occupied Paris. The story revolves around these heroes forming an unstable alliance to stop Hydra from turning the tide of the war in favor of the Nazis. And this conflict of perspectives, an American super soldier and an African king with different priorities and cultures, has everything to generate strong, dramatic moments. Another reason not to ignore this game is the creative team. Amy Hennig directing and Mark Bernardin, comic and TV writer, writing alongside her, all running on Unreal Engine 5 with a focus on character animations and cinematic narrative. If there's anyone who knows how to balance action, drama, and pacing in an adventure game, it's Hennig, and the chance for her to finally deliver a complete project after years away from the industry is something worth following closely. Now, the complicated part. The game has already been delayed twice, first from late 2025 to early 2026, and then to beyond early 2026 without a specific date. The studio justified this by saying the project is ambitious and they want to ensure it hits the expected quality level, which is understandable, but it also means it might take until the second half of 2026 or even later. If you are 100% focused on GTA 6, Marvel 1943, Rise of Hydra offers something completely different. A linear adventure, strong narrative, third-person action with multiple characters, and a historical setting that mixes science fiction with the real drama of World War II. It's the type of game that might not have a giant open world, but compensates with emotional weight, memorable set pieces, and a story you'll want to see through to the end. And considering the talent involved, it would be a shame to let it pass just because everyone is looking elsewhere. Way of the Sword is one of those games that arrived like a bolt from the blue for those who missed a Japanese action experience with weight, style, and a pinch of the supernatural. After almost 2 decades without a new main title, Capcom finally brings the franchise back in 2026. And what we see so far is a powerful mix of samurai, sharp swords, and demons in a Kyoto corrupted by evil, all with a somber atmosphere that hooks you right in the first minutes of gameplay. The game puts you in the role of Miyamoto Musashi, who wields the Oni Gauntlet, a mystical artifact that gives you powers to face the hordes of Genma, demonic creatures that have taken over the city. Combat is brutal, demanding timing, observation, and a lot of precision, parrying attacks, dodging projectiles, exploiting weaknesses, and using the environment to your advantage are part of the samurai's daily routine. The parry and counterattack system is very well done, and that moment when you manage to execute an enemy with a precise strike gives a sensation of power and control that few games can deliver. The visuals are incredible, with Edo period Kyoto shrouded in malignant mists, scenarios full of mystery, and an oppressive climate that envelops you from start to finish. Furthermore, the Oni Gauntlet not only gives you powers, but also allows you to see the past and better understand what happened in the city, creating an extra layer of immersion in the narrative. The sense of progression is striking. Upon defeating enemies, you collect souls that restore your health, buy upgrades, or activate special weapons called Oni armaments, which are true works of art in terms of design and visual impact. The game has open areas and side quests, but maintains a linear rhythm that leads you through a story full of plot twists and past tragedies, revealed little by little through Musashi's visions.
Not enough! I need more! Pick your battle, piggy!
Musashi! We both want the same thing, Musashi. But there's only room for one at the top. And it won't be a coward who runs from jewels. Words never did work between us, did they? Sasaki Ganya.